Hey, Jeff Hoyt, Zeolite Labs here. I want to go over what I'm referring to as detox cycling, some insights I've discovered through the illegal scan. And basically, what I'm going to demonstrate is how the body processes metals and also how that affects minerals and vitamins. And it's quite interesting. And it's difficult to get some of this data without regular testing because basically each test is going to be a snapshot. And the more snapshots you have over time, the more complete story you're going to be able to tell. So, first, I want to just kind of just go over some examples, some case studies, just showing how the body's processing metals in these individuals on a detox protocol. So, first, I want to show you this. This is a 9-month retest. So we have the gray line baseline test, and then 9 months later, after going on an effective detox protocol, you can see it looks like nothing happened. And we're talking zero movement. I mean, zero, right? It not at all. Some of them there's a little bit, but just from this test, it looks like not a lot happened. The vitamins were basically the same as well. The minerals, there's a little bit of improvement, but I mean, some improvement, but it's if I just got this 9-month retest, I would probably stop the protocol because it looks like not that much happened. But what I'm going to show you now is that this individual had tested 5 times during this 9-month period, and there was actually significant movement that did take place. It's just we can't see it because the beginning and the end are the same. So really, I think a lot of the benefit with the illegal scan is gathering data along the way, opposed to just an endpoint. So what you really want to see is movement. Opposed to just getting the metals all to zero. So starting with month 1, after the first test, we have the metals rising, right? So that's great. It's indicating the body is releasing the deeply stored metals. They're coming into the tissue of the hand. Fantastic. Month 2, now they're coming back down, right? So the body stopped releasing except for mercury and gadolinium, which is interesting because the body does tend to group certain metals together in a lot of individuals if they can't detox them all at once. But for the most part, the metals are now reducing. And then we have the next test where the metals, aluminum, gadolinium, and mercury are increasing. The other ones are still reducing. The next month, huge reduction in aluminum, mercury, and some in gadolinium. So those are the 3 that went up the previous month. The other ones all went down. Now those 3 went down. All the other ones went up a little bit. So pretty interesting, just the groupings, how it works. I think it comes down to what I call detox energy. How much energy does the body have to allocate towards detox? And someone that has a lot of detox energy, just generally cellular energy, doesn't have a lot of toxicity, maybe doesn't have a lot of microbial imbalance, just a lot of just in generally good health, is potentially going to be able to detox everything at once. But someone else, the body kind of has to prioritize, and it kind of cycles back and forth, which is interesting. Anyway, great reduction there in aluminum and mercury. Then we have the next one, bam, up again. Right now, everything almost is up. So it's kind of going in sync. So we had really good movement, up, down, up, down, up. And then 9 months after all of that, we're back where we started, right? So very interesting. It just shows you that, one, the body's never just going to be continuously dumping all the metals for excretion all the time. It's processing the metals in different ways. So you've got the 3 levels of detox, which I have a video on that if you're not familiar with it, but basically it's one of my theories on detox, where you've got the level 1 toxicity or storage, where that's where your body's kind of currently processing the toxins. So that's going to be like circulation and in the gut, just more exposed. Then you've got level 2, which is the general tissue, including your hand. So that's where you're going to be basically what we're testing here on the illegal scan. Then level 3 is going to be the deeply stored toxic elements. So that's like the deep storage, and that's most likely, that's generally going to be the organs, that kind of the deep tissue. So when the level goes up on the illegal scan, it's coming out of somewhere, which is most likely organs, and it's coming in from level 3 to level 2 general tissue. So when the level rises, like here, they're not exiting the body at this point because they're coming from organs to general tissue. Then when they get reduced, that's when they're going from level 2 to level 1 and out the body. So it's very interesting. So Dr. Raymond, not sure what his last name is, I think he's from the Netherlands, but in the illegal scan training portal, there are a presentation from him is posted, and he discusses when he was doing kind of a comparison to the illegal scan and chelation challenge test, urine chelation challenge testing for mercury, that when the mercury goes up on the illegal scan, nothing is showing up in the urine. But when the level goes down on the illegal scan for mercury, that's when the mercury shows up in the urine, which kind of lines up with my theory, because when the level rises, it's coming from organs, going into general tissue, but it's not yet leaving the body. And then when it reduces, that's when it's going to show up on the other tests, the excretionary tests, because that's when it's actually leaving the body. So that's why the other testing methods for heavy metals can be incredibly limited, because they're just measuring what's excreted. And if you just test every few months, you really have no idea what's going on. So this is intracellular tissue. It's much better. But still, if I would have just tested this lady at, baseline, and after 9 months, it would have looked like nothing happened. So testing regularly, I mean, the more snapshots you get, the better. So some people cycle in and out of this detox faster than others. So sometimes it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and sometimes after 30 days, you're back where you started. So it's very interesting stuff. All right, so here we have another one. So this is after 30 days, and we can see just a huge dump in the metals. And that's another point. People are going to detox at their own pace. So that's another benefit of kind of regular testing with the illegal scan, is one, you can determine is someone actually detoxing, because a lot of people are on protocols. They think they're detoxing, but they might not be, or they might just be removing tissue level, but not getting to the level 3 organs. That's why the illegal scan is fantastic, because if the levels rise like this, they're coming out of those deeply stored areas, the organs, and they're coming into the tissue. So it's just a deep level full body detox, which is fantastic. You can also see how fast someone is detoxing. So in this example, this person is detoxing incredibly fast. That's a huge move in these metals for a 30-day period. Just in general, it's a huge move, but in 30 days, absolutely fantastic. So right off the bat, you can tell this person had, the amalgam fillings in their mouth, because we're lined up here, mercury and silver incredibly high. So pretty much everyone that has those is going to have that level. But after 30 days, and this is just taking a Zeocharge, it was 2 scoops of Zeocharge per day, and also 2 capsules of fulvic charge. And that was all. And it was just an incredible move in the metals. Pretty much all of them are going up. Gadolinium and lead were the only 2 that went down. So those are leaving the body at this point. So those would show up in probably a urine test. All the other ones are coming out of organs. Huge moves though. Okay. So then we tested the next 2 months. So that's the first 30 days. Then the next 2 months, you can see the metals drastically reducing, except for the gadolinium and lead. Those were the 2 that went down in the first. Now they're slightly up. All the other ones were up. Now they're down, and down dramatically. Then if you just look at it day 0 to 90, looks like very little happened, right? So very interesting. So once again, it just shows the benefit of more routine testing, because if I just would have done the 0 to 90, it looks like nothing happened. But we had a lot of movement there. Here we have another one, and this is going to be the results after almost 5 months. So just under 5 months, you can see it looks like we're not getting a lot of movement. And once again, it just speaks to the reproducibility and sensitivity of the illegal scan. We're looking at these levels that are basically identical after a 5-month period. And then in the meantime, there was incredible movement occurring, and it just ends up exactly where it is. So 1, it shows the test is incredible. 2, it shows the body has a very specific level of these metals that it kind of goes back to, kind of a baseline level in the tissue, whether that is kind of the stress threshold, whether that is just the level it's going to maintain or it can handle. Not sure, but it always goes back to that exact level. So very interesting. Maybe that's the level it wants for ionic mimicry, where it's going to keep those. I don't know, but it is interesting. Okay, so first test, we have, and this individual was had a number of chronic health issues. So a lot of times the people that have the more chronic issues are going to detox slower, because a lot of their energy, their body's just natural energy, is going to be used up on other things. So that's another thing to consider. It's another thing when you're doing this regular testing, you can kind of see how fast they're detoxing, and then also you can try various protocols and supplements and see what's moving the needle the fastest and how efficient is it as well, right? So you want to also look at the vitamins and minerals and make sure they're not getting destroyed as you're detoxing, because that's never never good. So, and those cycle as well. So sometimes, and we're going to see it here actually, where they did get messed up in one test and then they bounced back, which is pretty cool. All right. So we've got some cadmium coming out, mercury coming out. So, right off the bat, this is just after 28 days or so. And she was taking 6 scoops of Zeocharge a day. That's it. Right. So it actually did, disturb things a tiny bit, nothing significant with the vitamins and minerals, but we are getting some detox after 30 days. And it's significant because even Dr. Rashid Buttar had said that it takes sometimes months to years to start releasing the deeply stored metals, right? So when we're with Zeocharge, we've been so pleased because we've been able to remove mercury generally within the first month in people, which is pretty incredible. And we're able to do so without causing symptoms and stress on the body. So this individual, for example, actually had some complaints that went away after the 3rd day taking Zeocharge, and she was absolutely shocked because she had tried so many things, but never felt any negative symptoms the whole time. All right, so metals coming up. Month 2, metals coming down, so pretty good reduction there. And that's where the minerals balanced, right? So the first one, as the metals dumped out, it was a little bit stressful, so it kind of negatively impacted the minerals a little bit. The next month, they balanced back as the levels fell. And then the vitamins popped up as well. And then the next month, we have just a huge dump of metals, right? So the first month, we had a little bit coming out. Then the second month, we had a good reduction. And then on the 3rd month, her body just had much more cellular energy. She was feeling better as well. And the 3rd month in, just an incredible dump of these metals, right? So you can see that the pace of detox increased. And this was on the same protocol. She continued taking 6 scoops the entire time, right? Now, what's interesting here is after this huge dump of metals, and these things have probably been in there for who knows how long, we see that it actually did disturb the mineral status, right? So that was just a lot for the body to handle, and it disturbed the vitamins as well, right? Because it probably just potentially there's redistribution, or it was just the body had to use additional resources to help deal with this increased load of the metals. Next test, they start coming back down, and we see the minerals start balancing again, and the vitamins start popping up, and then the end was just back to where it was. So in the end, looks the same, but there was all sorts of movement. So same type of thing. Interesting with the cycling of the vitamins and minerals, where a lot of people, the vitamins will pop up right away, but then as the body goes through these different cycles of detox, the levels will go back to where they started. So there's really no net loss of vitamins or minerals. Usually, a lot of times there's a net, usually it's a positive effect, but even if the body has to use additional resources to detox, they kind of end up where they started as well, which is kind of interesting as well. So I think the body, and the more reserves you have of the vitamins and minerals, the faster you're going to detox because your body has more resources to do so. All right, here we have a exactly 1 month, 30-day retest, and this individual was just taking Zeocharge as well. You can see that the minerals are starting to balance nicely after the first month, and the metals are being reduced except for the lead and gadolinium. So a lot of times those do work together. So lead and gadolinium going from level 3 to level 2, and then all the other metals are exiting the body. And then her vitamins improved, her minerals improved. So overall, not a stressful experience, had no symptoms or anything like that. Then we have the next month where we have the gadolinium and lead leaving the body, where before they were, collecting in tissue, and now all the other metals, except for aluminum, that's still leaving the body, all the other metals were going from level 3 deep storage into level 2 general tissue. And it appeared that was a little bit more stressful. So it, altered the effects a little bit. Vitamins and minerals pop back a little bit. So potentially it was the mercury or something that came out of the deep storage that caused a little bit of stress. But when you look at the beginning and the end, things are back to kind of where they started again. So that's where the intermittent test is important. But the aluminum just went straight down, just huge reduction the whole entire time. There's a net positive in vitamins and a net positive in minerals as well. So even though there was some, it did stress things out a little bit, the body then recovered. So that's why the body's never just going to continuously be in one of these levels of detox and just continually dumping. It's going to naturally cycle itself because it just knows what to do, which is interesting. And the protocol hasn't changed, right? These people are just taking Zeocharge, which is fantastic, but it's the body knows what to do, and it'll cycle in and out, and it'll determine which metals it wants to dump and when, and it'll release at its own pace. So that's why people are not getting symptoms. It's not stressful. So really cool stuff. All right, here we have a gentleman who pretty high levels of mercury, and you can see after the first month, 34 days, right, 63 years old, he was taking the Zeo and the Fulvic as well. So 2 tablespoons of the Zeo and 2 capsules of the Fulvic after a month. So you can see not a lot going on with his minerals, but we're getting huge release in lead, and all the other ones are releasing. The only ones that are leaving the body are the gadolinium and the aluminum. The other ones are going from the organs to the general tissue, or the deep storage to the general tissue. Vitamins, actually his vitamin D was not showing up on the initial test, and then it skyrocketed. So he had a huge improvement. And a lot of times we do see a correlation between especially mercury and vitamin D. So interesting stuff there. Okay, so that's his first test. Then his next test, we have the mercury. And this was after, because when I did these case studies, I wasn't testing most people every month, which I would be doing now. But the levels, because just the more I can test, the more data I'm getting. But even after 3 months, so we don't know what happened in between here. That's maybe why they're at baseline, but the levels did come down. And then the next test, huge pop up again. So we're getting good movement in these things. And then the mercury was back down at that point. Stayed steady there. So probably just because there was that huge mercury dump, it did negatively impact the mercury or vitamin D there. After 7.5 months, though, total, once again, looks like not much happened. Really nothing changing, it looks like. I mean, even like these things are the same. Whereas in reality, there was all sorts of movement in these things during the 7.5 month period. But back to, basically back to baseline after that. Here's one that is one of the most interesting ones, interesting case studies. One, it just shows the body is not going to detox what it doesn't want to detox. And it just shows a number of things which we're going to see. So this individual, she had some chronic health issues in the past, or I guess still, 5'8", 265 pounds, 65 years old. And she tested, and then she retested after 11.5 months, right? So basically a year. And she had not taken any of the Zeocharge or any of the protocols I recommend. She just got the test, and then she went and she worked with her functional practitioner who does a lot of muscle testing and things of that nature. And she was taking about 40 different supplements, all sorts of stuff, detox stuff, herbal, just tons of stuff for a year. And she did report feeling better and having some blood markers improve, and overall an improvement. But after the retest, it kind of looks like the same challenges, right? Nothing really improved in terms of the tissue levels here, and still super high flora. I mean, not great improvement, but you can see on the metals just incredibly high levels. So the good news is that she is detoxing. The bad news is probably a ton of the stuff in there, but the good news is the levels are rising. So whatever she's doing is actually moving out most of these metals. But the only thing is when you look at mercury, zero movement. 262, 262, 4. I mean, right? Like after an entire year, the mercury appears not to have moved. So when she came back, she wanted to get retested. Or when she saw this, I said, well, what we don't know is if you actually were detoxing mercury this entire time or not. It's possible that it was cycling in and out, and now it's just back to baseline. So I said, keep doing exactly what you're doing. Come back and get tested in a month. So that's what she did. So she came back in a month, still, same protocol. So it looks like the fluoride was potentially cycling back and forth too a little bit, which was good. So she's detoxing most things. Now she's kind of, going back down. So she was on a dump phase here. Now she's on a kind of a cleanup phase, but the mercury still not moving. So it was pretty safe. I would assume that during that whole 12-month period, she was not detoxing any mercury. And another thing which is interesting is that her practitioner who does all the muscle testing said that she kept testing and there was 0 mercury showing up. So it just shows, I mean, there's limitation to all tests, but if she was not currently processing this mercury and it was just stored in tissue, that's not going to show up in any sort of bioenergetic test. It's not going to show up in a hair test. It's not going to show up in a urine test. It's not going to show up in a blood test, any other test, because those are all measuring what the body is currently processing. And in this individual, the body was not processing the mercury. It was just stuck in the tissue. And I'm sure she had a ton in organs as well, but the body was just not willing to let it go. It was willing to detox everything else, but it was not willing to let it go. Probably just because she's not in, there's a lot of issues, and her body just probably didn't have the resources available to do so. And it's just hard. Mercury is the hardest, in general, the hardest metal to detox. And, potentially she also had some, extreme sensitivity to it, to mercury, autoimmune type stuff, whatever it may be, her body wasn't willing to let go. So that's a key factor to understand. Detox is it's up to the body, right? The body was willing to let all this stuff go, not that. So I said, all right, maybe it's just all that stuff you're taking wasn't, good enough. So I put her on 6 scoops. I said, okay, just take 6 scoops of Zeocharge, add that to it, and we'll see if we can get your body to let go. So she does that. So she comes back another month later, 27 days later, after taking the Zeocharge, and you see still, not a lot going on. You see actually a huge reduction in most of the metals. So the Zeocharge definitely accelerated the detox in a pretty major way, but it didn't really do anything for the mercury, right? It just, the body wasn't willing to let go, right? Although the other stuff was still going strong. Then I said, okay, let's go to 12 scoops. Maybe you need more. Try again. So then she does 12 scoops, not moving, right? And then the other things are kind of starting to pop back up. So, and then the beginning and the end, So after 14 months, if she just would have tested, it looks like absolutely nothing happened. In reality, there was some huge moves occurring, just not in mercury. So the mercury stayed the same the entire time. All the other ones actually moved quite a bit, but they ended up where they started as well, which is, once again, just goes back to that, that level of the body, kind of that baseline level. This is the only individual that I had tested who was not able to detox one of the metals. So this was the first time and the only time that I've seen the Zeocharge not being able to detox the mercury. And it just shows that her body just in a defensive, just as a defense mechanism, is just holding on to it. And she was improving in some other areas, so that was fantastic. And I think it was just too much. It was going to be too much stress for her body to handle to try to release the mercury. At least she was able to get rid of some of the other stuff, which was fantastic. Another thing, it's possible that she was just taking so much stuff that it might have been adding a lot of stress, just causing stress. It might not have been that efficient of a detox, in which case the body, no matter how much Zeocharge you take, the body's just not going to let go of the mercury because of the stress of the other supplements. So I have seen that as well, where Zeocharge on its own generally is a very gentle detox. But then if you add just other homeopathics or other things, a lot of times it actually slows down the detox because it's adding stress to the body, and the body's not able to naturally release the metals. It's not as comfortable doing so. So a lot of times with the detox, less is more. I like to kind of refer to it as max detox, where if your body's getting to the point where it's releasing stuff, it's releasing all the metals, and you're kind of on a roll, and you're feeling either nothing or you're feeling better, and the minerals and vitamins are kind of cycling back, and there's no net loss in those, and everything is peachy. You really don't want to add additional detox stuff. So a lot of people that are just taking Zeocharge get incredible results. Then they try to add stuff to accelerate the detox, and it actually slows them down and makes them worse, because it's adding stress to the body. Because in an ideal situation, when you're detoxing, you want kind of either a reduction in stress or just very little stress to be added to the body. And if you have prolonged stress while detoxing, your body's going to slow down the process, or at least stop releasing the deeply stored stuff, just because it's very difficult, or it's going to be a very difficult process. And you want the least amount of stress as possible. So sometimes just less is more with these things. And Zeocharge works more as a detox agent opposed to a binder. I mean, it is a binder, but I think the main benefit is it gets the body to naturally release these toxic elements from the deeply stored areas. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going in and ripping out these metals. It's just the body's naturally releasing it. because the Zeocharge is doing such a great job of, I think, binding to so many toxic elements that are in level 1 and potentially level 2, just kind of making room for the body to naturally release some other stuff from level 3 into the other levels. So that's kind of how I think it works. So by adding things that stress things out, sometimes it interferes. So anyway, kind of an interesting one. But the point of that was the body's not going to let go of what it's not going to let go of. I mean, you can take synthetic chelators. You can do whatever you want. I've got, I've did some also, had some people taking OSR, strongest stone chelator for mercury. And even that was not reducing the tissue levels of the mercury, because the body's natural attraction or binding strength to, let's say, mercury is going to be stronger than any chelator, because if the body doesn't want to let go, it's not going to let go. And you don't want to fight against the body. You want to work, when it comes to detox, you want to work with the body, not against it. Because if you work against it, you're going to lose that battle every time. And that's why a lot of people take a lot of harsh detox agents and they assume it's working because they're getting symptoms, or just because they think it should work. Doesn't mean it's working. That's why the illegal scan is great, because we can actually determine, is the body actually letting go of the metals? And the gentler the detox, generally the faster it's going to do so, and the more effectively, especially long term. So those are just a few examples of just what I'm calling detox cycling, and that's occurring really in everyone that I've been retesting. So yeah, if I encourage people to kind of experiment with it, but the more you test, the better. If you're just testing every 3 months or 6 months, if you want to give it a try, test yourself, or test some patients or clients every month, or every 3 weeks, even every 2 weeks, because it kind of depends on each person's detoxing at their own pace. But you can kind of see from the more regular testing how the body is actually processing the metals, because in my opinion, it's a lot of people just want to get a test, and they want to test a year later and say, are the metals lower? And that really doesn't tell you the whole picture, because what we want to see is movement over an end result, right? So movement is good. Whether the levels are going up or down, it means they're going to be leaving the body. If the levels are going up, they're leaving organs probably, and they're going to be going to general tissue. Then when the level goes down, it's leaving the body, right? So it's just that cycle. It's just different phases. So if you just retest after 6 months or a year, or even 3 months, a lot of times you just don't get that data, because you don't know just the cycle. And that goes for all testing, right? The illegal scan is by far my favorite heavy metal test, but just doing intermittent testing with hair, urine, blood, or anything else, you're just not really going to be able to see what's going on, because the cycling is occurring in the body, and it's just going to be hit or miss based on when you test with all those levels. So so kind of interesting stuff there. But anyway, those are just kind of my thoughts on detox cycling and how the body processes metals. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. There's my email there, jeff@zeolitelabs.com. But yeah, happy detoxing, everyone. Keep up the good work.